Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Do me a favor, and if you're there, just put in the chat, I'm here, just so that I know. I know last time I actually, for some reason, it didn't come into the live, didn't come through to the group. So if you are there, let me know if this is coming through so that I don't spend all my time chatting and then I realize I'm in the wrong group. So if you're there, just say hi in the chat. This is the Coach Parent Mindset live group, Facebook group. I'd love to know if you are there. Just say hi or just send me a smiley face. So today we're going to talk about the coach approach for more buy-in that supports healthier habits and routines. And so this is kind of a follow-on from last time, but not really. This is going to always come with the coach approach as we are focusing more on asking our kids as opposed to telling our kids. I'm also going to talk a little bit about our strategies workshop from last time, but also what are good questions you can use, what questions don't work so well as, what do you do when your child says, I don't know? Like, how do you respond to that? What do you do when your child doesn't cooperate? How do you show up as a coach when that happens? And how do we hold them accountable as a coach? And so again, I am a coach. I'm not a parent guru who's going to give you advice or wonderful solutions. That's not what I do. You have wonderful solutions. And so I am just showing you how to coach, because you will find the ways and the principles of coaching will help you in any conflict situation. So if you are there, just say hi. I want to make sure I'm in the right group. Hopefully I am. We'll just give it a minute or two. I'm sure people are still logging on. It's always good to grab a notebook because I'm going to be giving you a lot of great questions that it'll be really helpful for you to jot those down. So what we're going to do here is, first of all, while we're waiting for everyone else, I just want you to know that I don't have all the answers. I'm giving you ideas of questions you can use. I'm making suggestions. Hi, Sherry. Thank you so much for letting me know I'm in the right group. So thank you. That's great. Welcome. So it is more about I'm making suggestions. Okay. And these questions that I give you, you need to make these your own. Like, your child the best. So the questions that I use, the wording that I use, you need to play around with them and see what questions will work best for your family. And so the whole idea is to finding ways to reach your child. You're inviting them in to communicate with you and to collaborate. That's really what we're doing here. And the way you're showing up as a coach, asking them the questions, as opposed to being the boss, manager, parent, telling them what to do, nagging them, reminding them. We want to move away from that. That's not what that affects relationship. We want our kids to be independent learners. We want them to, have the life skills that they need for adulthood. And you are preparing them as well to find their own solutions and to be more independent. So you're finding a better way to connect with them. That is really what we're doing in the Coach Parent Mindset. So if you did watch the Startup Strategy video from last week, maybe you didn't, that's fine as well. I was talking about how to help your kids with healthier habits and routines, using the coach approach, because you really don't want to be your child's alarm clock. You don't want to be waking up in the morning. You don't want to be their taskmaster. You want them to be independent learners and independent thinkers. And so, if you did watch that video, please share, any ideas that you are trying with your children, to help them with better, healthier habits and routines. You're welcome to share some ideas, what's working for you, what isn't working so well. And then just a question, why do we have routines? Why are routines important? Why are they helpful to us? If you want to put in the chat with regards to how you see routines and how you see the importance of them. I'm just thinking of an example for myself right now is I love going running in the morning. So around 7 o'clock, my morning routine is really going out at about 7, going for my run. I love the sun, I love the mountains. And that's my way that I start the day, after I have, done my quiet time, or when I have checked a few of my emails as well at that time. That's sort of my routine. But when my routine starts to go a little bit wonky, should I say, is when the situation changes or when I start to lose a bit of motivation. And so I know for myself, when winter comes, I start to lose a bit of motivation, or it's a bit harder for me to go and do my exercise. Obviously, I don't always go outside at 7 o'clock in the winter. So I find other ways that I can do that. And so that does affect routines. Is situations change, maybe the motivation is not always there, but we really want our routines to start becoming automatic. like brushing our teeth, because that's how we get into healthy habits. That's how we help ourselves with overwhelm, with stress, anxiety, all of those things. Routines also, and I've been thinking about this more and more, routines help us to find solutions, and to solve problems. And so what I'm realizing more and more is routines are strategies for solutions, because when you're feeling like you don't have the energy, or you're feeling tired all the time, you're going to try and find a routine that's going to help you to have more energy. It might be an exercise routine. It might be a sleep routine. It might be going to bed early. And so those, how small or how big they are, those things will help you to find those solutions for yourself, make your life easier, have less stress. And so that is why we have routines. And so go ahead if you want to add, why are routines important to you? Is there a specific routine that you like to do every day that really helps you in your day? Go ahead and share. Shizing, hi, so good to see you today. So good to see you. Wow, it's just great. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so if you're just logging on, just say hi. If you're going to come back and watch this video, the recording, please come back and write down your insights and comments. I would love to hear from you. I love to hear from parents, because this is where we get to collaborate together. I want to hear what your difficulties are, what your challenges are. I want to be able to give you some ideas and principles of coach strategies that you can use with your kids. Okay, so that is talking about those routines. So let's take a look at, let me take a look here. Let's start with, what are good questions to use, and what are good questions that don't always work? Okay, and so one of the questions that I like is, what's your plan? What's your plan for getting your schoolwork done? Or what's a possible solution? And that can be a bit overwhelming for a lot of kids, particularly when they're still figuring out more independence for themselves. Like, what's your plan is just so big. They don't know where to start with that question. So sometimes that can be something you need to be able to break down. And so, you could say, okay, so if we're talking about what's your plan to get your schoolwork done today, you could break that down into another question and say, well, what's on your schedule for today? Or if you're doing a nighttime routine, what is on your schedule for tomorrow? So you're starting to break it down a little bit more. And then from there, they might need your help, because often kids will struggle with, what do I do first? What's my priority? What are the important things that I need to get done? So you could ask the question, what's the most important thing that really needs to get done urgently today? So that could help them break that down even more. You might want to say, would you like to go through the steps together and then figure out put them in the order of importance? Would that be helpful to you? So those are another ideas that you can use. And if you ask them the question, what could get in your way? Because that's also a great question. I love asking, what could be your distractions? What could get in the way? If they're not sure, you could give them ideas with, well, what if this happens? What will you do? Because some kids do struggle to think about, well, what will get in my way? I don't know. What if you take a break and then you can't get back to your work? What will you do? Because some kids struggle with the transitions. Getting back to work, getting started can be hard for them. And so a question there could also be, with regards to routines, is what could be a good transition routine that would help you get back to start your work? And so really, even if they can't always find the solution, it's okay, but you're getting them to think about, what are they going to do? And if they don't have the answers, that's fine. Let them sit with that, and let them think about it. If they're saying, I don't know, you can say, okay, that's fine. Maybe it's something you can think about, and then, we could talk about this again. And so don't always, I know with myself as a parent, I want them to have the answers for themselves straight away. I want them to find the solutions, but just be okay with sitting with, it's okay. I don't know. We don't know what the solution is yet, but let's think about it some more. So if that makes sense. So if that's resonating with you, let me know. When the questions are too big, to breaking them down, how helpful is that to your child personally? Because I know some kids can get overwhelmed with, what's your plan? Which is actually a good question, but just a little bit intimidating for some of them. It's too broad. Let's tackle the question. Let's say you're asking them something and they just say, I don't know. And this is very, very common. So what I would do for that first is, I would first of all challenge the I don't know. See what is the reason for the I don't know. You could ask questions like, well, what's comfortable about I don't know? What's uncomfortable about I don't know? And you're not going to use all these questions. I'm just giving you ideas. You may only use one of these for a certain situation. What feelings come up for you when you don't know? Because that's another thing, because they are, it also could be the reason, could be maybe they don't want to deal with it. Maybe it's too hard and there's feelings of anxiety there. Or maybe it's a cop-out for not having to think about a solution. I mean, that is also a possibility. Because then I have to fix it myself and they want to skirt away from the responsibility. So there's many reasons, but just asking them those questions will just get curious to find out without making the assumptions. What's the other thing here? So when they say I don't know, another way you can tackle this is, well, can you tell me what you do know? So start there first. Maybe there is something that they do know about the task or about the project or whatever the situation is. Another idea, as I said, these are not all questions you're going to use in the same conversation, is you want to determine what is it that they don't know exactly. It might be, well, do you not know how to do the math? Or are you not sure what the instructions are? Okay, and so you could also help them with, is it this or is it that? What do you think? Or is it something else? And that just helps them to break down what is it that they don't know, what are they struggling with. The other thing I want to say is I don't know can create a lot of frustration for us as parents. Them not knowing can make us feel anxious because, well, I should be able to help them. If they don't know, I don't know how to help them. And sometimes I just want to encourage you to just sit in that place without the answer. It's also fine. Be okay with I don't know sometimes, because you are getting them to think about it by those questions. Because you won't always know how to answer that. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's okay if you don't know how to answer that. So those are some ideas with regarding to deal with I don't know. Just tell me in the chat, how do you normally respond to I don't know? Or are some of these answers or questions resonating with you? What is one that particularly resonates with you? Okay, go ahead and put that in the chat. Let's get on to what if your child doesn't cooperate? Okay, this is a big topic, and I'm going through quite a few topics here and just skimping on them just a little bit to give you some ideas. And so I want to talk a little bit about consequences here. There are 3 different types of consequences. There's obviously, we have natural consequences, which is a natural consequence of their choices. Unfortunately, natural consequences often affect the parent as well as the child, or even the entire family. So that can be really tough, but natural consequences are important for them to learn those important life lessons so they don't make those same mistakes. The other consequences are when parents hand out the consequence, when it's parent-led consequences, which is one of them as well. And then there's another consequence that I want to talk about as well today, is when it is mutually agreed upon consequences, where you are giving your child the opportunity to talk about what consequences they think would work for them. So there's a little bit of a different spin to consequences. But first, what I want to do is, talking about when you are giving consequences that are parent-led. I'm not going to talk about specific consequences here, but as a coach, I think it's important to ask yourself some questions. And so these are some questions you can jot down for yourself when you are thinking up a consequence. Is saying to yourself, well, is this consequence motivated by love and understanding? Okay, we don't want to give out a consequence when we're feeling angry or we're feeling resentful or we're all in the heat of the moment. So that is a very important question, just to make sure that it's fair and making sure that it's done in love. And also, it's a logical consequence. It's a relevant consequence, that it fits the situation depending on what the problem is. Because what I find a lot of the time is parents will just use one consequence for for any behavior or any problem, and that's often taking away their phones, and it just makes them more resentful. So it's really important to ask yourself those questions because of the frustration. I know what it's like. Parents are like, I'm so frustrated, I'm just taking my kid's phone away, I'm just so fed up with this, and it may not be a very fair consequence. So asking yourself those questions. Then also asking yourself, will this consequence help my child to move in the right direction? Will this help my child change the behavior or have a change of heart? Because really we want to get to the heart issues of our children. And so those are good things, because if the consequence is not changing the behavior, it needs to be discussed again. There needs to be another conversation around that, around what is going on, because you also want them to be able to self-reflect. The consequence needs to be bringing them to a place of self-reflection, and not shaming, blaming, guilt, those sort of things. Obviously, they need to know what they've done wrong and apologize, ask for forgiveness. All of those things are really important. So the consequence needs to get them to a place of repentance, self-reflection, and a change in behavior. And the important thing with all of this is parenting outside of the conflict, so that you show up calm and kind, and you're not handing out consequences, as I said, in anger or the heat of the moment. So you've thought these things through beforehand. A couple of things I want to say as well is what's really important is you want to be able to open the communication, invite your children in to talk about something that they disagree with in a respectful way. So teach them to respectfully disagree with a consequence you've made, or a behavior you're doing, or something that they're accusing you of not being fair, whatever it is. You don't want to cut off the conversation. You want to teach them how to disagree in a respectful way, in a kind way. You're teaching them to express their emotions in a more calm way, and you're giving them space, and you're giving them a safe space for them to practice this, where they can practice critical thinking, where you can actually teach them how to communicate, how to problem solve. Okay, you don't agree with this. What is it that you don't agree with? Bring your case, almost like they're presenting their case to you in a respectful way. You're teaching them very useful skills of communication and negotiation, which they're going to be using in real life. And what you're also doing here is you're creating a space for them to come to you when they do disagree with you. And you're creating that safe place for them to come and talk to you. And so I think that is really important, that they know that they will not be judged, or you won't be judgmental towards them, and they'll be able to talk to you about why they think something is unfair. Okay. And then going back to questions again with cooperation. And I think many of you know this, and I talk about this a lot, is why questions don't work. So when they're not cooperating, this could be something you say to them, or something you're thinking about them. Why don't they ever learn? Why don't they do their chores? Why don't you listen to me? Those questions don't help. They don't solve problems. They convey your disappointment, your frustration, your judgment. And so it just causes more conflict. You want to be able to find solutions. You want to be able to solve problems. And this is what coaching does. These are the questions that help. And also, we're using judgmental why questions. We're losing the opportunity to reach our kids. Okay, I'm talking about myself because I'm also a parent. We lose the opportunity. We want to be able to be calm, kind, so that we use our words in a thoughtful way and we speak in a kind manner. The other thing is you wanting them to self-reflect. And so another way is you want them to know that it's in their best interests to do what's right, okay? Because it won't go well with them if they don't, okay? And we hear the saying a lot, what you reap, you sow. Sorry, what you sow, you reap. And it's, in scripture, we also talk about, honoring your parents, it will go well with you. And so the other thing you could say, well, if you don't choose to do what's right, or you make a bad decision, it will not go well with you. Or if you choose a good decision, it will go well with you. And sometimes that is enough for them to just think about what the consequences are. You want them to see the benefits of cooperation as well as the costs. It will go well with you as opposed to it won't go very well with you. And I think one of the ways that you can help them with more cooperation is also just notice and affirm them when they are cooperating. I think that's a good way of encouraging them in this area. I noticed you made a good choice when you were kind to your sister, whatever it is. It will go well with you. And so I think if we can focus more on the positive affirmations, it will help them to make better decisions. Because we often focus more on, when they're not cooperating, and that can affect relationships as well. So tell me what you think about that. What is resonating with you? And the more, I talk about this, the more at the end of the day, we are all a work in progress. We're raising our children in a way that we are being challenged as well. We are being challenged to be better and do better. We are being challenged spiritually and personally in our own personal development. Who am I being in front of my children? What am I modeling? And for myself as a Christian, having Christian faith, how am I honoring God? If I'm not thinking well of my kids, it's not going to go well with me. I want to honor God and be obedient as well to what I need to do and how I need to show up with my kids. And so these are the kinds of things we need to be challenging ourselves is, how am I being in this situation? Then going back to, I want to talk about consequences again, coming back to maybe designing that together, asking them what they think the consequence should be. And this helps them, if you ask them, what do you think the consequence should be? And it's more about getting curious to see what they say. I personally feel that they do set down quite strict consequences for themselves. You might think, well, they wouldn't do that. I don't know your children, but get curious and ask them what they would do and what they would say. But what you're also doing there is you're getting them to evaluate their choices. You're getting them to be intentional about thinking about what are their actions going to be and what are the consequences going to be for themselves. Just having that conversation is helping them to think through those things. If I don't do this, this will happen, or if I do this, this won't happen, whatever that looks like. And you want them to take ownership, to be more responsible for their actions so that they can create those healthier habits for themselves and healthier behaviors. Again, and you might think, well, they might come up with a consequence, say, well, what if you don't do your chores? What will happen? Let's say they work out a consequence for them and you both agree, and that seems fine either way, but you're still not seeing change in the behavior. So you could possibly, come to them afterwards and say, well, this consequence isn't changing the behavior. What do you think? Do we need to relook at this consequence? Is this consequence not working? Just get their input on what they think is going on, because you want to be able to start seeing a change in behavior and a change in attitude and whatever else is going on with them. And so that could be an interesting conversation to have with them with regards to, if they set a consequence, is it changing their behavior? And is it working? Is it not working? Let's take a look again. And so experiment with that. I really want to encourage you to experiment with that and see, hey, let's check in again and see if this consequence is working for you. And then have that discussion. I think you'll be surprised as to what comes up in that discussion. Hi, Cami, so good to see you. Wonderful, wonderful. So good to have some parents joining today. Okay, let's see what else are we going to talk about here. So we've just been talking about, Cami, if you want to go back and look at the video, talking about consequences, and I have 3 consequences: 1, natural consequences, those that are parent-led consequences, and then consequences that are mutually agreed upon, where the student actually designs that consequence, if you like. And so it's just kind of an interesting way of doing that as well, and coaching them. And then let's talk about accountability and follow through. Again, with consequences, are they following through? Is this consequence working? What is going on? And so what I want to also just challenge us, myself included, is where are you not being consistent in your routines, or where are you not following through when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it? Or perhaps you have said to your kids, well, we're going to make sure we have once a week family night, and it doesn't happen. Or you have promised them a special whatever it is and you don't follow through with it. And so think about those ways where you're not following through for yourself and you're not following through what you said you were going to do. And so just having a bit of empathy for them when they don't do what they say they're going to do. We do the same ourselves. But you're also wanting to support them in following through and being accountable. And one of the things is letting them decide those consequences, sometimes, not always. Asking them the coach questions. I mention these questions a lot. When they've decided this is what I'm going to do, well, how will you remember? What's going to get in your way? What's going to be your plan? And so those questions you're helping them to follow through with. What if you don't do what you said you were going to do? There's the consequence. And so just those questions alone will really help you to, support them in following through. And again, it's mutual accountability. Supportive accountability is where you are also doing your part where you say you're going to do it. And so the other idea that I have is making sort of mutual supportive agreements together in writing. I don't like calling them contracts because it just sounds too formal, but you want to have, coach agreements where they agree on doing whatever they say they're going to do with regards to their chores or with regard to their social media or with regards to their sleep or their health or their schoolwork, whatever it is that they agree to doing and getting into those routines. It's really important to, in some way, put that down in a visual way so that you're both on the same page, but also you have it somewhere where they can see it. And so what I suggest is, writing that down in an agreement, in some kind of template where they get to sign it, you get to sign it, and you put it up in their room where they've agreed to do their chores at this time, if it's a chore routine, if it's a morning routine, whatever that is. And I am working on a resource. I'm just about done with the resource where you can actually purchase these ready-made, done templates for you, where you can have these agreements are written down for your kids. They get to make their own or fill in the blanks, fill in mine, if that's easier for them as well. And you both agree and write them down. So there's no misunderstandings. There's no he said, she said. It's all, and also it motivates them because they see their routine in front of them. Okay, I remembered I'm going to be doing, this is my morning routine, or this is my exercise routine. It's right there in front of them. It's a visual way of reminding them, motivating them. Hey, how's it going with your routine? When are we going to check in to see how this is going? That is really important. And you may want to also have your own routines with the templates that I have. You may also want to do that with your kids because then you are also holding yourself accountable. So yeah, what else do we have here? I think that's about it. Holding them accountable. What are your biggest challenges with, follow through? Maybe you start a semester really well and things are going well and you get into a good rhythm and then it just starts to fall apart. What gets in your way with regards to, setting up routines, getting into those good habits? Like what really gets in the way? What makes it hard for you to keep consistent? Because that's what you want to try and you want to keep consistent. You go ahead and write that in the chat. What I also really like to encourage parents is having those regular check-ins. If you decide every day, ask your child, when would be a good time for us to check in? How often should we check in? Invite them to do that with you, to create that check-in routine. That's another one that I have on their templates, is creating that check-in routine. What does that look like? How long should it be? So you're not nagging them, reminding them. You get together, put it on your calendars as a reminder. And getting into those regular, maybe it's an every night Friday night where you have a little check-in and you watch a movie together or you do something fun. And so creating those, family traditions, family socials, those little routines are really important to keep doing those things, particularly. And I always talk about adding those in. The first thing you do is add those in on your calendar before you do anything else. You're showing them your values. You're showing them, I value family. Well, if that is your value, I value family time. I value our time together. That's most important. And then we'll fill in all the other things that we need to get done. But we have to make sure, I would like to make sure we do these 3 things every week, whatever that looks like. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful to you. Thank you so much for being here. You can come back and watch the rest of the video, and perhaps you want to share some of these questions that are working well with you, and whether those, what's really resonating with you, what insights are you getting out of these questions, and what is your favorite question that you're using right now? You're welcome to share all of those things. I will try and write down some of these questions for you. Hopefully you had your journal today. If not, go back and watch the recording, because I am giving you a lot of questions that you can write down and then look at them, analyze them. Which ones are going to work well for you? How are you going to change them? And remember, it's not interrogation. Don't interrogate. Don't ask too many questions. 1 or 2 is enough. Just get curious and hear their heart. Hope this has been helpful, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.